Parenting is at best daunting. Being able to understand your child may require your parenting power skills. Skills you may not have known you have. She is Julie Friedman Smith of Parenting Power. By the way, you can join in the conversation by using the hashtag Parenting Power if you have a question. We'll get to it right away. So, you have two kids.
That's right.
I do as well. Are they teenagers?
I have a 15-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy. So one's a teenager and one's almost there.
One wants to be a teenager desperately.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are pretty much the same. I have two boys, 13 and 14 years old.
All right.
And they both are teenagers.
Yeah, you're in there.
And they want to be adults. So earlier we were chatting about Cardston. And Cardston is an area, as we've all heard, is that they said they want to stay dry. No alcohol. They've had this plebiscite that they did yesterday, but
Yeah.
they said for 109 years we want to stay dry. The survey, though, says about Calgary is that we like to binge drink. Now, here's where I'm going with this, because the survey started at 12-year-olds.
I heard that.
So 12-year-olds, are 12-year-olds drinking?
Some 12-year-olds obviously are drinking.
Okay. As a parent, should I be overly alarmed? Should I be concerned? How do I deal with that?
Well, at Parenting Power, we believe that there's more than one right way to parent. So different parents are going to handle it differently.
Right.
It's illegal. So if one of your values says, my family follows the law, then you may respond to it differently than if you're somebody who says, who cares? 12-year-olds are going to drink. As long as they're safe in my home, it doesn't really matter. From a legal standpoint, it does matter. From a parenting standpoint, it really depends on your family. So the best way to handle it, if you're concerned about it, is awareness is the first step. Know what your rules are on that. If you haven't ever discussed it with your co-parenting partner, talk about it with them, figure out what your family values are, and start talking about it with your kids and make it very clear to them what your expectations are, what your consequences are if you find them drinking.
Right.
And also we want to teach our kids strategies. Whenever there's a rule and peer pressure tends to be part of it,
oh, yes.
We want to teach our kids strategies for how they're going to get beyond that peer pressure. If everybody else is doing it, what excuses could they say? How can they stand in their truth and say, no, I'm not doing that? So really talking to our kids about it instead of putting our heads in the sand and thinking, oh, it's not happening to my kid. I don't need to worry about that.
One of the things that we do in our family is we talk about planting seeds and doing it. We did it at a very early age with our kids. And again, age specific, so we didn't get into something too deep if they were only 5 years old.
Sure.
But we would plant seeds along the way. And you're absolutely right about that strategy about, well, here's what society says about, for example, we were talking about drinking. So here's what society says about drinking. If you're 12 years old, you can't do it, bottom line. And then peer pressure, you're bang on the money, because we've been following that same sort of idea. That, you know what, peer pressure is it's so powerful. And if we recall back to our youth, how much we were influenced by those of our same age. But if we don't have that strategy as a child, we tend to go with the peer pressure.
That's right.
Great idea about strategy.
The other thing about that is, thank you. The other thing about that is that we need to make sure that our words and our actions are matching up. So some families might say 12-year-olds aren't allowed to drink. And then at an event where there's alcohol being served, you might give them a little sip of beer or give them a little sip of the wine or, some neat something that's on the table.
Yeah.
So really, sometimes those black and white rules, we end up breaking them ourselves as parents. If you say,
and they're watching us. Oh, our kids are watching us.
Yes, exactly. So let's be real. We don't have to use somebody else's rules. We can use our rules. In our family, I don't have a problem with you taking a sip of wine. We have a religious ritual that requires our kids to drink wine every so often, a sip of it. So just being really realistic for your family. In our family, this is what we do, and our expectations are that this would be the only time that you would be drinking alcohol until you're of age. Or, some families are like, well, yeah, of age is 18, but really if you're 16, that's okay. So people need to figure out what's true for their family and then set things in place so that you're talking about it, your kids know their consequences.
This is from David. He says, my kids and I are beyond help right now, he says. But he says, unless Julie has good tips on how to get teens to do their schoolwork, David, great question.
It
How do
is
you
a
get
great
teens
question.
to do their schoolwork because they know everything? We have about 45 seconds.
Okay, you make a plan. You don't have the same argument over and over again. What's expected? They can't do anything else until that work gets done, and you teach them how to do it, and then gradually you back off. And at the age of his kids, they need some skills, and then they need to stop having the arguments and back away. And they will face the consequences of not doing their schoolwork. So a little bit of it is consequences coming from the school as well.
And if they fail at an assignment, let it happen. It's better to have it happen now than into adulthood.
Yes, failing tells you what you don't know, and you can learn it.
We have to have you back again. This is fantastic. We just touched the surface. I mean, a lot of parents are looking at me going, Phoenix, ask more, ask more. We'd love to know what your questions are for Julie as well, too. We'll have you back again, too.
Sure,
This is
that'd be
fantastic.
great. Thank you.
Parenting Power, Julie Friedman-Smith, here on Trending on Shaw. Hey, by the way, here's what's happening in and around our city. Still to come, though, Canadian music gets beachy. Yeah, you're watching Trending on Shaw.